This episode is sponsored by TrueLearn. TrueLearn is an NCLEX prep program with over 900 practice questions mapped to the NCLEX RN blueprint written by content experts. You can pick your plan in 30, 60, 90, 180, and 365-day increments and get performance analytics with real-time national benchmarking. You can even choose a subscription option that integrates with Picmonic to guide your studying. Head to TrueLearn.com and use promo code FRESHRN for 20% off. That's TrueLearn.com, promo code FRESHRN for 20% off. What's up, guys, and welcome to the podcast. Today we're going to talk about the ideal NCLEX study timeline. So some of you may have recently graduated. Some of you are looking to graduate hopefully in the next 3-4 months. And that last year of nursing school is a bit of a logistical nightmare, I think is the best way to say that. Not only are you worrying about passing all your classes, but you also have to have a plan of attack for the NCLEX as well as getting a job. So in this episode, I want to talk to you about kind of how you can schedule and view preparing successfully for the NCLEX as it fits into that hectic period of time. So I'm going to talk about this in two different periods of time: the last semester of school and then after graduation. Okay, so let's say for all intents and purposes that you are starting your last semester of nursing school right now. If you have not already, I would begin researching different NCLEX study prep courses, okay? Now, I do know just a couple people who have, prepared for the NCLEX very minimally and did fine. I would say that they are the exception and not the rule. Most people, most normal people, myself included, needed a more comprehensive review to prepare for it. Now, here's the deal, guys. This isn't like a nursing school test where, okay, if I don't pass, it's okay. I got another test soon. So there are implications to not passing this the first go around. Now, they're all doable, but this equates to a loss in revenue, essentially, because so let's say you don't take it seriously and you just graduate and you're like, I'll do a couple review questions and then I'll take it and I'll see how it goes. So it costs money to sit down and take it. Okay, so you're going to pay a fee to take it. And then, you wait a little bit, you find out, I didn't pass the exam. If you got a job, a lot of you will get jobs during your last semester and it will be contingent upon you passing the NCLEX. Let's say you land this job and you don't pass. So typically employers will work with you and you can take it again, but it has to be by this certain period of time. Some jobs will not do that, and some jobs won't take you until you can say, here, I physically have my nursing license. So let's say you don't pass. Well, you can't just immediately sign up to take again. There is a waiting period, and I do not know off the top of my head how long it is by the NCSBN, but you have to wait a little bit, and then you can take it again. And then there's a max amount of times that you can take it in a year. And every single time you take it, you have to pay. And if you want to find out early that if you passed or not, you have to, again, pay. So not only are you paying for additional attempts at the exam, you're also not able to start your job. So from a cost-benefit analysis perspective, you are really losing money. So when I look at it in a business mindset, or with a business mindset, it is actually cheaper for you to pay up front for something to help you ensure that you pass the first time and can immediately work after you pass your exam. Big proponent. I think I know 2 or 3 people who got a book on Amazon, read a couple questions, casually did it, and passed. Again, exception, not the rule. So I implore you to take this like seriously, especially as we come into 2023. April 1st, we'll begin a new format of the NCLEX called Next Gen. And it will introduce some other challenges. I do have another podcast episode where I go over that specifically, so you can check that out. It's actually just a couple episodes ago, or maybe even the last one. I can't remember. A recent one. It's just called NCLEX Next Gen. But you need to take it seriously. So what I would encourage you to do is that last semester of nursing school, if you don't already know what NCLEX prep plan you're going to go with, pick it out. Now, there's a couple that I really like, mainly because they don't just serve the purpose of, helping you pass the NCLEX, but they're useful during nursing school. So Pick Monic with TrueLearn is one of them. Nursing.com is another one. So they do have their NCLEX prep aspects, but then they also have stuff that helps make nursing school easier. Big fan of those. And another reason I'm a big fan is because you can get used to that software before school ends and you start studying for the NCLEX. So you're very familiar with your resource when you get to go time. And I like that. And you're kind of like a slow burn start with it. So I think that helps. Now, there are other options out there, and I recently did a blog post that explains all of these different options as of 2023, and I can link to that in the description of the podcast episode, because there's quite a few. There's quite a few out there, and some of them are just question banks. Some have additional like content review with them. So there's pros and cons. That's a whole another podcast episode. Okay. But my point here is I want you to be intentional. I want you to be intentional about selecting one and picking one, going with that one, not buying multiple, but I'm going to pick this one and I'm going to stick with it. Some of them allow you to purchase them like earlier and then you don't start them until you need to because they can be time-based subscriptions and some aren't. So this is what I want you to do. You've picked out your NCLEX step prep option, okay? And what I want you to do is get a calendar that I hope you already have a calendar in nursing school. But I do want you to kind of plan out your last semester logistically. So you're going to have a lot of exams, but then you may have your practicum or your like capstone or something like that. Lots of papers. Make sure all that's on there so that you can have rest in like the knowing reassurance that you know that you got your last semester planned out, because it is going to be the most hectic between job interviews, finishing all the senior stuff, and then preparing to take the NCLEX. I do have a little mini course that kind of goes through all of those. If you go to courses.freshRN.com, it's called Mission Accomplished. I got a little like checklist of these are all the things you need to do that last year or last semester, really. I talk about the last year, like the senior year or second year for those of you in an ADN program, but really focusing on that last semester. And when you're in this last semester, in terms of NCLEX prep, I wouldn't be going nuts, okay? I'd be doing a handful of questions, maybe kind of familiarize myself with how the NCLEX works, because it works differently than a normal nursing school exam. It's something called a computer adaptive exam. Again, that's another explanation. But just like familiarizing yourself with that. But during your last semester, I would consider it successful if I have figured out what my NCLEX prep plan is going to be, and maybe doing some questions every few weeks, every week, getting a little used to it, handful of questions in between all the craziness that is that last semester. I also want you to decide which state you're going to work in. If you're a United States nurse, what you're going to have to do is apply to a specific state board of nursing. Now, for the most of you, you're probably pretty sure what state you're going to work in, but for some of you who might be moving or relocating, you're going to want to decide, okay, yes, I'm definitely going to be in this state. So that's going to be the state board of nursing that you're going to apply for a license to, okay? Because you'll take your test But those test results, while they will eventually get to your nursing school, what matters is the test results get to your board of nursing that says, yes, this person passed this exam, and because they passed this exam, and because they passed the background check, and because they graduated from an accredited nursing school, it's safe for this individual to have a nursing license and take care of patients. So you really need to know which board of nursing you're going to be working with, and I'll familiarize yourself with their website. Okay, and those would be my last semester priorities. Okay, number 1, pick out an NCLEX study plan. Number 2, maybe do a handful of questions each week. Number 3, decide what state you want to work in. And most importantly, number 4, focus on finishing school. Okay? I don't want you to be so focused on worrying about the NCLEX that you're not devoting the appropriate study time to passing your nursing school classes, to writing your papers, clinical care plans, all that stuff. You can't take the NCLEX if you don't pass nursing school. Okay, so we got to get nursing school still the priority at this point, okay? So keep that in mind. So now, before we get into our after graduation groundwork, let's take a quick break. In this episode, we're talking a lot about NCLEX prep, and TrueLearn is a phenomenal option. In addition to over 900 practice questions, flexible subscription options, and even the ability to integrate with Picmonic, my favorite feature of theirs is smart texts. You can set it up so that your phone gets text messages throughout the day of tidbits of information as a way of passively learning. They even have a feature called Smart Tips, which gives you test-taking tips and strategies that are actually based upon your habits and performance. Head to TrueLearn.com and use promo code FreshRN for 20% off. That's TrueLearn.com, promo code FreshRN for 20% off. All right, let's get back to the episode. All right, after graduation groundwork. So here's what my personal recommendation is, because I remember the mental state I was in as I was finishing nursing school. Like, dear God, I can't. That was so much. I'm so tired. And I was just like exhausted, doing all the stress from trying to get the job, finishing the care plans, finishing the papers, the clinicals, all that, and all the little tests you have to take at the end. My goodness, I needed a mental break. Okay, we all do. After an intense, I feel like that's a marathon. And the way I like to look at this is getting through nursing school is like a marathon, and then the NCLEX is a sprint. But we can't go straight from the marathon directly into a sprint. You're going to do much better on that sprint if you let your legs rest for a little bit, okay? So I want you to take a little time to decompress, but just a little bit, okay? Not talking 24 hours, maybe 5, 6, 7 days, to just nursing school's over. Now for me, I personally took 1 full week off, okay? I graduated on a Saturday. I had the whole next week where I was like, I'm not opening a nursing book. I'm not looking at any nursing anything. I refuse. I knew I am a go-getter. I am attempted to be an overachiever, but it was like, I needed to put up a boundary there. I'd be like, okay, I need a second. I'm not going to dive right into studying because my brain is just fried. Okay. So I waited 1 week, and then I started my NCLEX preparation. And this is the mentality I want you to have as you recalibrate your brain from nursing school. So you're no longer taking these multiple choice tests, pass, fail, you get another chance. You are now studying to take 1 computer adaptive exam. I want you to take a fresh breath. This is a new challenge. And I want you to consider studying for the NCLEX as your part-time job for a short period of time. And if you consider, if you don't pass, that it will cost you more money, it really is like a short-term part-time job. Okay. Now, statistically, most people test within 4 to 8 weeks after graduation. I tested 6 weeks. I felt like that was good. I could have possibly tested at 5, I think. But it was definitely, I needed a little time, but you don't want to wait too long. The waiting longer, putting it off does not usually help. The farther you get out from nursing school, the rigor, the information recall, the immersion in the content, the harder it is to recall that information and deploy it when you need to. So I don't want you to wait 3 months. You also can't start working. I don't know why that, but some people get real nervous and they're like, oh, I'll just put it off. Future me will deal with this. But we don't want to delay too much because that actually can make it actually more difficult. So you kind of buck up and take it. All right. So you want to, when you're ready, but pay it, we're all going to be nervous and we're all not going to want to do it. But there's a point where it's like, okay, I got to just do it. I got to get it over with. So let's say you graduate on May 1st of 2023. That would mean you would be testing likely mid to late June, probably giving you some sort of a July start date at a job with your RN license, depending upon how long the paperwork processing is going to take. So keep that in mind. All right, I walked across the stage. I got my nursing pin, took a little time off, week or less off. All right, now I got a new part-time job. I'm getting ready. I'm starting this new challenge that is solely focused on passing this exam. Okay. It is theoretically, it's like, oh, I really want to know information to take really good care of my patients. Yes, I get that. That's a thing. We need to pass this exam to take really good care of our patients. So focus on doing what you need to do to pass the exam itself. This is the challenge. This is the mountain we got to climb over. So there are some big, people do want to be altruistic and really want to learn for the benefit of their patients. I get that. That was nursing school. This is the exam. We got to pass it and we got to do a few things to make sure we can. And that includes learning how the exam is structured. So when you recalibrate your brain to now have this part-time job focused on passing this one exam, I want you to start with a fresh set of eyes and be like, okay, how do I attack this? I need to make sure I understand how this works. How does a computer adaptive exam work? How many questions are in each category? How good am I? How do I feel about each of these categories? Am I really good at mental health stuff and then pharm is my Achilles heel? Where are my knowledge deficits and where do I need to focus? And also the next gen changes that are happening in 2023 for those of you who will be testing after April 1st. That would be also familiarizing yourself with that. Okay. So you want to understand there's 3 different ways that you really prepare logistically with understanding how the exam works, test taking strategies. Some of these NCLEX prep options do go through this systematic way of breaking down questions, which can be very helpful for those of us who really need help focusing our attention. So that's one aspect of it is the logistical. Then there's also, oh my goodness, practice questions. Okay, so you want to get reps in taking practice questions. Okay, reading the question, ensuring you're answering what is asked, and going through that in an appropriate way. And then the third aspect of studying is content review. Okay, so we've got these 3 things that you with this new part-time job are really gonna get into. Okay, and it's up to you on how you want to work through those things. But that's really important groundwork to lay in the structure of how you're going to study. Okay. Now there is another piece. I guess this could fall under logistical, maybe not. there is this like legal paperwork aspect of getting your license, because this is your board examination to allow you to be licensed, right? So I mentioned getting familiarized with your State Board of Nursing, which will be the regulatory body in which you are licensed under. You're going to have to do things like register with Pearson VUE, which is who administers the test. Now, the National Council of State Boards of Nursing, NCSBN, those are the people who write the NCLEX. Pearson VUE is the company that administers it, okay? So you have to sign up to take the exam with Pearson VUE and pay a fee. Then you also have to apply for your state license, which also has a fee, as well as the background check. You likely also need to get fingerprinting done. Those processes are different with every state. Okay, and if you're like me, I went to nursing school in one state, tested in another state, and ended up getting my license in a different state. So your nursing school likely will help you with some of this, especially if you're going to be working in the state in which your nursing school is located in. But if you're like me and I went to nursing school in Iowa and I ended up working in Illinois, my nursing school didn't do anything to help me get ready to physically get my license. I had to look through the website and figure it out for myself, which was not easy, which I discuss in my little mini course, that Mission Accomplished mini course, that you can find at courses.freshrn.com. But that's part of this like groundwork too, is making sure you've got all those paperwork pieces, facilitated. So, because typically how it works, depending upon your state, you're going to apply to your State Board of Nursing to be able to test, and you're going to get an authorization to test, an ATT, and that's going to be something that allows you to register for the exam and schedule your exam date. Okay. And then you're also going to familiarize yourself with, what can I bring? Well, how do I do this? There's a lot of, because this is a legal situation, there's a lot of, this isn't like a nursing school exam where they do take cheating seriously. But if you have somebody who, like the seriousness level is increased with the NCLEX because it's a state board exam. Because if someone takes the test for somebody else and submits test exam, on behalf of someone else, that's saying that someone else, the person who's getting the license, actually doesn't know the things they need to know, right? So there's, security aspects of this that are helpful to know ahead of time, because it's a little intimidating to go in and, have things taken so seriously. So that's kind of the groundwork I want you to lay, okay? I want you to give yourself time to decompress, familiarize yourself with the legal paperwork or legal aspect of actually testing and getting your license. I want you to recalibrate your brain from nursing school and prepare for this, part-time job, and prepare logistically with also practice questions and a content review. So now let's talk about all right, how do I structure my time to study? So there's a few ways that you can do this. Some of these NCLEX prep programs will enable you to take simulation NCLEXs, where you can see where you are. Excuse me. You can also do pre-tests with some of them, or you could do, a sample, create your own. A lot of these will allow you to create your own test, where you could create one and just kind of see where you are. Because maybe you don't know what you are struggling with or what you're really good at. So that would be helpful to get when you go to your shift, you get a baseline assessment on your patient. Do a baseline assessment of your NCLEX knowledge, okay? If possible. Not all of them have that. And don't freak out if you don't have that. But it is helpful to kind of guide your studying and what you focus on. Important point, though, is to stick to whatever prep program you have, okay? Don't go nuts cross-referencing everything. So let's say you pick TrueLearn with Picmonic. When I'm in my part-time job of passing the NCLEX, I'm not looking at other stuff. I'm not going to be doing 20 minutes on Picmonic and then 30 minutes rereading a textbook and then, 30 minutes watching some YouTube video. I think that this helps with decision fatigue and confusion, which ultimately contributes to overwhelm if you can just focus on whatever NCLEX prep program that you have selected, okay? So back in 2010, a long time ago, I took the NCLEX prep program provided by Kaplan. Now, back then, there literally were 3 options. It was Kaplan, ATI, and Hearst. And everyone in my nursing class did Kaplan, so I just did it, and it was extremely expensive. But back then, you had a in-person review. So I went to this in-person review for 1 week, and I did like how they explained how the test works, and they explained a decision tree. And then, you did these practice questions and whatnot. And then at home, I did practice questions. And that week of in-person instruction was really helpful. And then I think it was 4 weeks after that of test questions. And it was really helpful to kind of have that structure. So that's kind of how I approached it back then. And I think that is a good way to go through it. Okay, I'm going to start off making sure I understand what's expected of me and what to expect of this exam. All right, this is how it works. This is what I'm going to be tested on specifically. All right, I get that. Now let me create a structure. So I think for how you can structure your time with this is I would dedicate 4 to 5 hours a day of studying 5 to 6 days a week. Okay. And how I would do that. And let me tell you how I did it. I would try to do 25 to 50 questions a day, 5 days a week. So what my schedule was Monday through Friday, and I would do those questions, and I took the weekends off. Okay. I would read all rationales, and I would take notes of important points that I missed. And I saw a great study technique from this. He was a med student, or a doctor now, but showed his med student study method, and I thought it was really good. Now this doesn't involve physically writing, but I liked this. So he would do practice questions, and then if it was a question he didn't, or if there was maybe you answer a question, and you see in the rationale, oh man, there's this point I missed. And maybe it's a cardiac point. So he would have different colored Post-its, and he had like a whiteboard where he would write down the different categories. So if it were me, I would have a whiteboard with the different categories of the NCLEX, okay? From the NCLEX blueprint, which should be part of your NCLEX prep program. And I would write up on the Post-it the thing I didn't know. And I would stick it under that category. So I could have this physical, visual representation of these knowledge deficits that I had. I think that is such a great idea. Physically writing it down is a great memory tool, and then it's color coded and then on this physical board that you're repeatedly looking at over and over again, and that can create in your brain like this picture of like, oh wait, that's right. I forgot that this is this and it's part of the cardiac or basic care or whatever. And you can visualize it on that board when you're, maybe in taking the NCLEX and see something similar. So I think that can be a really good structure that I would definitely do if I was taking the NCLEX today. But I think aiming for 25 to 50 questions a day is really helpful. And depending upon whatever NCLEX prep program you use, some do have multiple attempts of practice tests. What I would do, I think when I had like maybe two practice tests, but unfortunately mine were like, they weren't computer adaptive. They weren't fancy like they are today. But I think the last Monday of the last week, I took one. And then like 2 day, like when I was done I can't remember what day of the week I was done, but like 2 days before, I took one more. And then that was how I used those, and it was helpful to get an idea of where I was. So, I would recommend making a study schedule, almost like it's your work schedule. And maybe it's Monday through Friday. Maybe you're 9 to 11 a.m., 5 to 7 p.m. I don't know what works best for your schedule and your brain. If you're an early riser and you function really well early in the morning, do it from 6 to 9, 6 to 8 a.m. or something like that. Then give your brain a break and then come back to it later. You want to be at the top of your focused game when you do this. Don't schedule this for the most exhausted version of yourself. Schedule these times for when you know I am going to be focused, I'm going to be motivated. This is game time, people. So it's like, I played sports in high school and college, and it's like, okay, sometimes you have to amp yourself up to go to practice. Sometimes you have to amp yourself up to play in a game. I want you to amp yourself up to sit down and do these study questions. I'm going to learn what I can. I'm going to do the best I can. It's going to be monotonous, but I've got to do it. And I think that can be the best way to get the most out of these study sessions. So essentially set yourself up for success is what I'm saying with these. And when you do have these smaller blocks of time, I think it's doable, okay? And maybe you can be like, okay, today from 9 to 11, I'm going to do an hour of study questions. And then however I do on those, whatever I miss, I'm going to use the next hour to go through videos, go through the content review of that, because you can either do the content review or you can do practice questions. You need to spend a lot of time doing practice questions so you can get that muscle memory, the used to your brain sitting at a computer answering questions for a long period of time. I know it sounds weird, but it takes a little bit of time to kind of build up this endurance or capacity to sit and answer questions on a computer without kind of getting mentally checked out. So you need to kind of build up to that, almost like, the first time you go to run a mile or sit down, okay, I'm going to go run. First time is you're not going to get as far as you would when you are in the groove of running. Same thing with this. So the more that you can have these kind of longer blocks of straight questions is really helpful. I know I mentioned it before, but I do like the micro-learning aspect of some of these NCLEX prep programs. So like the True Learn one that I've mentioned, you can have it set to send you text messages with tidbits of information, to your phone. So you're passively learning. So when I'm in this part-time job, I'm going to increase the frequency of that, because that I need to kind of ensure that I'm getting this frequently. So like maybe during nursing school, if I had it during nursing school, it's only having it going off a few times a day, maybe a lot more while I'm studying, so that I'm like, oh, okay, here's this. Good. This is a point that I need to remember or whatever. And the spaced repetition is really, really helpful. Even if it doesn't feel like in the moment, it's like, oh, gotta learn more. The more repeated exposure, the more your brain can remember it. Okay. And there's another aspect of this. Part of your part-time job at this point is not just focusing on content and review questions. It's also getting your brain and your body ready to do this. So that means getting good sleep. Good sleep helps you perform better. So if you only have 4 hours a day where you are laser focused and it's in these 2-hour blocks, that means you should be getting good sleep. Okay, that means maybe in the middle of the day you're getting some exercise. And that doesn't have to be some crazy intense workout. Maybe you go for a mile walk. Maybe you do a couple sit-ups. Just get blood flowing, get you moving around, okay? Also, eating some food that will, keep you full while you take an hour and a half, 2 hours worth of questions, You're eating food that is nourishing your body. You want your brain and your body in this optimal state, not struggling to overcome exhaustion, dehydration, intensely varying blood sugar levels that can, really make you focus and ready to go and then crash. Like, we don't want it to be struggling to overcome that. We want to be kind of like attuned with our body so that we're setting ourselves up for success. Okay. So as you're getting to the end of this study period, maybe like I mentioned 1 or 2 weeks before, take a practice exam. Really helpful if it has a simulation where it can really feel like the actual NCLEX to get you, okay, let me make sure there's no reason I need to delay my test. That is, again, an exception. I think most people who graduate nursing school will just fine. and put in this time are going to do great. So I definitely there are people who may need to delay, and you would likely find that out at your last practice exam or so, if that's going to be necessary. Okay. So let me review my points on how you should structure your studying. Take a pretest if possible. There are 2 types of studying at this point, the content review and practice questions. I want you to make a plan and aim for taking anywhere from 25 to 50 questions a day, 5 to 6 days a week. Make sure you're also reading all your rationales. And make this kind of plan on your calendar of the time of day you're going to study. I suggest 2-hour blocks, one in the morning-ish, one in around nighttime or evening, or however you want to do it. And decide I'm going to do a certain amount of questions, do a certain amount of content review. Also, side note, when you're doing a content review, I don't want you to feel like you need to review every piece of content about nursing school. That is a waste of precious time and mental bandwidth. You can't essentially go reread everything from nursing school in this time. That's not an effective use of time. You're wasting your mental bandwidth that is already limited. So you want to save that for your weaknesses. It's not helpful to go over things you know very well and kind of ignore the stuff that's more challenging. We want to lean into that stuff so that we can get through those questions, okay? So get that study schedule together. Consider, if you can, some spaced repetition, and take very good care of your body as well. Again, so that you can set yourself up for success and not forcing the most exhausted version of yourself to overcome itself to perform, okay? Now, the day before, don't study. If you're testing on Friday, on Thursday, don't study. If you don't know it by now, you won't know it, all right? I want you to take that time to kind of come down off of intense studying for 4 to 8 weeks. Hey, job well done to myself. Maybe you're going to go out to get a good meal that you like. You're going to watch some shows you really enjoy, regulate your nervous system, calm down, maybe meditate a little bit, and kind of get ready for game day. The more relaxed you are going into it, I think the better it's going to be for you to recall that information. So if you can do some real meditation and some deep breathing, breath work, belly breaths, so that can be really, really helpful in getting you in a good mental space. And that night before, get your paperwork together, know where you're going, so that you're not like, oh, I don't know where I'll be at. I don't want to be late. Like we don't want to show up late and rushed. It's hard to get into that good mental space. Again, like a game, people who play athletics, a lot of people, to get in the right mental space, get to the field early. They have a ritual in how they put on their cleats or their practice gear, their game gear. They have a set of exercises they like to do before, a certain song they like to listen to, and this kind of helps them mentally shift from normal life to competition and getting ready to leverage this very advanced skill that they know, which is what you're doing. This is advanced, complex stuff. We need to set ourselves up for success. So encourage you to take time to allow your brain to transition and not be rushed, cutting it close. And now you're on the clock and the game has started and your brain is still on your grocery list, right? Or the turns you missed and the person that honked at you or something. So I think that by putting all of those pieces in place, it sets you up for success. And hopefully by doing all of that the first time, you get it done, one and done, conquer that challenge and move forward with your job. So that about does it for my ideal NCLEX study timeline. I know if you take some time and you're very intentional with it and honest with yourself about what you need, you're going to do great. So remember, you can get 20% off of TrueLearn. So if you head to truelearn.com and use the promo code FreshRN, you can get that 20% off, which is a really good deal on when I look at like the prices of NCLEX prep. This is very competitive, and a high quality product that you get. I would not, work with a sponsor if I did not believe in it. And I really do. I think this one's a really great option. And if you, again, want me to walk you through all those little things you got to do during your final year of nursing school in more detail and get some downloadable checklists, you can head to courses.freshrn.com and select Mission Accomplished. It's 100% free, no charges there at all. Then you can, rest in the reassurance that, okay, I've got this checklist of things to do and I'm going to stay on track. So thanks so much, nurses, and stay fresh.